Good morning, all. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and participants. Welcome to the first pre-conference workshop of the Second International Conference on Social Sciences and Languages. Today marks an important milestone as we commence the first of our two pre-conference workshops. As we all know, a strong foundation is essential for achieving excellence in academic research. On behalf of that, we are privileged to present today's workshop on an introduction to systematic literature review. Without taking much time, let's move forward. I would like to invite Dr. Rohan Abeyvikrama, the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, to address the gathering.
Good morning, everyone. Professor Ravindra Deshapriya, Professor in Economics at the Faculty of Academic Studies, Uvellasa University, and all the academic staff members of the faculty, and also the postgraduate students and other students of the Faculty of Social Science and Languages. So first of all, I am thankful and I'm grateful to the organizing committee of ICSSL for arranging this nature of workshop. As stated in the email that we received, this workshop has a lot of implication for all the stakeholders in the academia, especially management and also the student, also the academic staff members and also the students. This is mainly because research has been now embedded into the curriculum, and also to the life of the academics. It's a lifelong kind of learning. Therefore, this has many implications for our professional growth, personal growth, and career development. As far as today's workshop is concerned, I saw the objectives given there. Actually, writing a literature review is, I think, as far as I know, it's a very systematic process. And also it requires some mechanism and skills rather than knowledge, especially to identify the gap in the literature, theatrical gap, and also methodological gap and empirical gaps and all sort of things. So I think today with this workshop, you will have some understanding about, I think it's a 2-hour workshop, some understanding about the areas mentioned there. So I think this nature of workshop is very much needed, especially students. So I think many students, those who are in the 4th year, I think have joined. And some other students, I learned that they are listening to, I think, Professor Desha Priya, I think in their smart classrooms. Anyway, I think there will be a kind of a vote of thanks later on. But anyway, I am thankful to Professor Ravindra Deshapriya for your that is a participation here and that is joining us in order to share your expertise with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear sir. Next, to introduce the resource person, I would like to invite co-chair of pre-conference workshops, senior lecturer, Mrs. Takshila Seniviratna.
Good morning, everyone. I am honored to introduce our esteemed resource person for the workshop on Introduction to Systematic Literature Review, Professor N.P. Ravindra Deshapriya. Professor Ravindra is a distinguished figure in the field of economics, serving as a professor at the Faculty of Management at Uvavellasa University of Sri Lanka. His extensive academic journey is marked by impressive achievements, including a PhD in economics from RMIT University in Australia and a first-class degree in economics from the University of Peradeniya. He further enriched his expertise with a master's degree in development economics from Nagoya University in Japan. Professor Ravindra's research interests are both diverse and impactful, focusing on pivotal areas such as poverty, inequality, and well-being, small and medium enterprise development, stock market dynamics, economic growth, and tourism sector development. His contributions to the field have earned him recognition as a Tier 4-star researcher as classified by the University Grant Commission of Sri Lanka. He has an impressive portfolio of publications in both indexed and non-indexed journals, as well as numerous presentations at international conferences, sharing his valuable insights with a global audience. Before his current role at Uvavellasa University, Professor Ravindra served as the Director of Research at the Lakshman Kadiragama Institute, which operates under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka. He also worked as a research professional at the Center of Poverty Analysis, where he focused on critical issues affecting our society. Today, Professor Ravindra will lead us through an introduction to systematic literature review, sharing his vast knowledge and experience in this essential area of research. We are privileged to have him with us today, and I'm confident that his insights will provide us with valuable tools to enhance our research endeavors. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor N.P. Ravindra Deshapriya. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, everyone. I think I am audible to you all. Right. So thank you very much for the nice introduction. And so in fact, first of all, I would like to thank for inviting me to conduct this workshop as the free conference workshop of the uh, second international conference on social science and languages, which is hosted by Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka. At the same time, at this moment, I would like to remind Dr. Pradeep Uluwaduge, senior lecturer attached to the Department of Political Sciences, who made this link between myself and the organizing committee of the conference. Consequently, I am here today to deliver this session on the systematic literature review. So I know that this is an online session, so we all have experience in the online session. So therefore, what we have experienced is like the lengthy discussions through the virtual mode is not that effective and productive, right? So therefore, we'll try to complete this session maybe within 2 hours or less to ensure the effectiveness of the session, right? As Dr. Rohan very correctly mentioned, yes, we are going to focus on the systematic literature review, but this is a kind of introductory session. So moving to the topic outline. So basically, this workshop is an introductory session on the systematic literature review. So therefore, my objective is to provide a kind of basic understanding on systematic literature review, but without going much details. Specifically, I will not be focusing on kind of technical aspects, how to use the software to conduct a systematic literature review, because I assume that because to complete up to that extent, we need to arrange maybe at least 2 or 3 sessions, separate sessions, to have a complete analysis on the systematic literature review. So therefore, at the same time, I personally believe that before we are going to touch the technical aspects, before we are going to use the software to conduct a systematic literature review, it is necessary to have a kind of the basic understandings. What is the systematic literature review? How it is different from the traditional literature review, and what are the steps, the key steps, and the procedure of conducting systematic literature review? So those are important. So otherwise, if you are going to touch maybe the technical aspects at first, we are going just blindly. So therefore, I think first we'll have the comprehensive, the basic understanding on this topic, and then later on we can move to the next section. Not only that, I'll be taking some the published systematic review, and then I will be getting some the analytical techniques that they have used, and then I will be interpreting all these things, and then you can have a kind of very comprehensive understanding about what is this systematic literature review is, and what are the usefulness of these sessions and the reviews. Okay, so with that introductory remarks, so let me move to the outline of the presentation and share the screen, and then to ensure the clarity of the presentation, so I'll be switch off the video throughout the presentation. Right, so I think everyone can see the screen, which I have shared now. So move to the outline. So let me start with the research cycle, because the literature review is a component of the research. So therefore, without having kind of at least a basic understanding about the research, difficult for us to continue. So therefore, I'll start from the research cycle. Then, so I'll be explaining what is a literature review, and then the searching process in literature review, and then the systematic literature review after that. And then I will be comparing the traditional literature review and the systematic literature review. And then I will be explaining the process of conducting this systematic literature review based on the Prisma framework. And then finally, so I'll be getting some kind of the paper, the published research paper to provide a kind of comprehensive understand how we can analyze those things, what kind of analytical techniques that can be adopted, and how to interpret the results of this systematic literature review. Right. So with this outline, let's move to the research cycle. You know that the research, right? So we don't need any definition, but to explain what is the research in the sense scientific or a systematic process of discovering new knowledge or upgrading existing body of knowledge, right? In a research, what you're going to do is we are going to answer the research question. By answering research questions, what is the expectation to discover new knowledge or at least to upgrade the existing body of knowledge, right? So these are the main two objectives of conducting research. We can explore the new knowledge, or otherwise we can upgrade the existing body of knowledge. So in this research, so we have to follow some key stages. This research cycle clearly indicates what are the key steps that we are going to undertake during the research process. The first one is the problem, right? The first one is the problem, the research problem. And then the hypothesis in the sense, the tentative research, the tentative answers for the research question. We formulate the research problem or the questions, and then through the hypothesis, we are going to generate some tentative answers for the research questions. And then we have to clearly specify so what are the objectives of the research. This is very much important. And the next step is we have to design the research design. So under this research design, we have to think about whether we are going to apply quantitative approach or qualitative approach or mixed method, right? At the same time, under this research design, we need to focus about the conceptual framework, how we are going to connect, how we are going to interrelate the variables of the research. That's known as the conceptual framework, right? And then we can move to the measurements. The measurements in the sense, how we are going to measure the variables in the conceptual framework. Then the operationalization, basically, so I know that you have studied the research methodology, so therefore these things are not new concept for you all. So therefore, once we complete the conceptual framework, then we can move to the operationalization, where we are going to explain our considered variable in detail. At the same time, we need to introduce some kind of measurements to measure the variable, like index. You can create index, or maybe you can use someone else's index to measure the variables. And then after that, we now have the variable and we have the measurements. And then the next step is we have to collect the data, right? We have to collect the data, maybe secondary data or maybe primary data. Then if it is primary data, you have to think about the population and the sampling techniques, the sample size and everything. Then after collecting this data, the main step is data analysis, right? You can apply maybe the quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, or the mixed approach to analyze the data, right? By analyzing data, what you're going to do is we are going to test the hypothesis. Because here we have generated the form of the hypothesis, then we have collected data, and then we are going to analyze the data. The objective of analyzing data is to test the hypothesis. Then after testing hypothesis, maybe you can reject or accept the hypothesis, and then you can conclude your findings, and then ultimately you can generalize your results, right? So ultimately you can generalize your results. Then after generalizing these results, that's publicly available, and then some other researchers will go through your research findings, and then they will criticize some gaps in your findings, right? So therefore, this is the basic cycle. The research cycle is also known as the research process, right? In this research process, the crucial thing is the problem. How to identify a research problem. That's the most difficult thing, because the research problem should be emerged through a research gap, right? The research gap in the sense, some gray areas in the literature. There are some unsolved problems in the literature. Unanswerable questions may be there. Then this research problem, especially maybe the undergraduates, maybe the postgraduate students, so they have struggled to find a good research question, right? Maybe once they finalize their research problem, maybe the supervisor or the panels maybe will provide some, provide some comments, and then accordingly they have revised this. So then, it is not an easy task to end up with a good research question, right? So then this problem or the research question should be emerged through the research gap. Then the gap in the sense, some gray areas in the literature, right? To recognize the research gap, we have to do a very comprehensive literature review, right? Only after conducting this kind of literature review, we can observe some gaps in the literature. Then based on this gap, we can formulate our research question. So that's why, I have taken this research cycle at the very beginning, because, this is the focus here, right? This is the point that we are going to focus today. To form a kind of very good research problem, we have to recognize a research gap. That research gap should be understood through the literature review, right? Keeping this in your mind, let's move to the next slide. And so what is the literature review, right? I'm not going to explain everything in this slide, because I know that this is a very basic concept, the literature review. But in terms of this literature review, the literature review in the sense, we are going to critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge, right? This term critically evaluate is pretty much important, right? Through this literature review, what we are going to do is we are going to critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge in relation to your research area, right? Then what do you mean by this critical evaluation? The critical evaluation in sense, you are going to highlight both pros and cons of the existing body of knowledge. There may be some studies, they have applied very good and kind of comprehensive and solid and rigorous methodological aspects. But when it comes to some other research, right, maybe the methods that they have applied not up to the standard level. Then when you are going to conduct a literature review, then you have to highlight, okay, so these are the strength and these are the weakness of the existing body of knowledge. That is known as critical evaluation. Going through the first statement here, a literature review is a descriptive and analytical synthesis which critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge related to a particular topic or research study. Then the second important point here is the literature review is not a summary, right? The literature review is not a summary, it is a synthesis, right? For example, assume that you have 5 research articles in your hand. Then if you are going to do a summary, what you are going to do is, right, you are going to take the first research article, then you can prepare maybe 1 paragraph summary. Then go to the second one, you can prepare another 1 paragraph summary, and so on. You can continue until you finish the 5 articles. That's a summary. But in a literature review, what we are expecting is not a summary, it should be a synthesis, right? We should be able to mix all the findings of these 5 research articles, and we can combine all these concepts and the ideas that they have generated. That is known as the synthesis. So therefore, when you are going to conduct a literature review, right? So when you are going to conduct the literature review, you should never focus on the authors or the scholars or maybe the research papers, but your critical evaluation should be focused on the concept, right? If you are going to base your literature review only on the concept, then only you can do a synthesis. But if you are going to focus the scholars or maybe the research papers, and then you will end up with a summary. So therefore, take this point very clearly. In a literature review, what you are going to focus is the concept. concept. For example, maybe you are going to examine, so what is the relationship between the remittances and household well-being? Remittances and household well-being, right? And then there may be number of scholars who have conducted research in this research area. But in the literature review, you are not going to focus on the scholars or the research papers, but you are going to focus on the concept, remittances and household well-being. Then only you can end up with a very comprehensive and synthesis of literature review. Right? Yes, the second point is the present overview of previous work on your topic, thus setting a benchmark for your project. Yes, because when you're going to conduct a literature review, you have to read a lot, right? The reading in relation to your research area, in the sense you are collecting, you are gathering overall information about your research. So then you have so many background information, and then you can enhance your, the knowledge on your research, and then easily you can place your research in the existing body of knowledge. So therefore, this literature review is pretty much important. Again, the bottom line is the literature review is not a summary, this is a synthesis. At the same time, when you're going to conduct a literature review, you need to focus on the concept, but not the scholars or the research papers. So moving to the last point here, it's very clearly says that a literature review also includes a critical evaluation of the material. So this is why it's called a literature review rather than a literature report, right? If it is a report, maybe we can include some summaries, but this is a review. The review, in the sense, you have to review the existing body of knowledge by highlighting the strength and the weaknesses of the existing body of knowledge. At the same time, not just highlighting the strength and the weaknesses of the existing body of knowledge, at the same time, you can provide your own views, on this existing body of knowledge. And this is how we can do a comprehensive literature review. Then, so what is the help of this literature review to the researcher? The first one is to gather information about what is already known about the topic. Taking the same example, so I'm always trying to take some example, then I feel that it's easy for you to understand, right? So taking the same example, the impact of remittances on household well-being, right? If it assume that you are going to conduct this research, the impact of remittances on household well-being, then before you are going to conduct research, then you have to collect some background information. You have to check whether this research topic that has been conducted by some other researchers, right? If this research is conducted by someone else, then there's no point of conducting this research. Then to confirm that, then we need to do a literature review. So therefore, after conducting literature review, then we can collect the background information related to your topic. And then, so after getting this background information, maybe theoretical or maybe empirical information, and then you can clearly have an idea about whether it is sensible to conduct this research or not. And the second point is identify. This literature review helps researcher to identify the gaps in the knowledge. So what kind of gaps in the knowledge? This, because I at the very beginning, I mentioned that research problem that should be emerged through the research gap. This research gap may be diverse. This research gap may be in terms of the evidence, maybe in terms of the knowledge, maybe in terms of the empirical evidences, or maybe in terms of the theoretical gaps, or maybe methodological gaps. Then those gaps can be observed, can be recognized only after conducting a thorough literature review. Then, so after recognizing these kind of gaps in the literature, then very easily you can justify of conducting your research. So therefore, this is how this literature review can contribute to the researcher to locate our research problem in the existing body of knowledge. And the third point is suggest methods and design for research. Suggest method and design for research. So what do you mean by this? Because when you are going to conduct a research, you have to have a conceptual framework, right? This conceptual framework clearly indicates the interrelationship between the variables that we are going to deal with. Then sometimes it is difficult for us to create our own conceptual framework. Then what we can do is, right, through this literature review, maybe you can go through a number of research papers, and then you can recognize how they have created their conceptual framework, right? At the same time, maybe you don't have much understanding about what kind of analytical techniques that you should apply to do the data analysis. Then you can get that sense from the literature as well. You can clearly go through the methodology section of the research papers, and then you can recognize what kind of statistical or the econometric techniques that they have applied to analyze the data. Maybe regression analysis, maybe correlation, maybe structural equation modeling, right? Then those things can be taken from this literature review, and it is a very beneficial aspect to the researcher. And the fourth one is suggest way of avoiding difficulties or deficiencies, right? Because when you are going to conduct our research, so we have to face a lot of difficulties. Sometimes the data is not available, right? Sometimes we can't apply some the expected analytical techniques. Then when you are doing the literature review, you can recognize. So they have highlighted limitations of the study, right? The limitations of the study in the sense, the difficulties that they have faced during the conducting of their studies. Then we can take those points, and then we can easily search the way of avoiding such difficulties, and then we can enrich our study based on the literature review, right? And finally, the literature review helps us to interpret the results. So assume that when you're going to do a research, you have to apply very unfamiliar but comprehensive econometric model, right? Maybe the probit model or maybe the dynamic panel data analysis, right? But you're not familiar. Then, since you're not familiar with this kind of rigorous analytical techniques, right, it is difficult for you to interpret the results that you have obtained from the software. Then don't worry, you can refer some research papers, right, which they have applied this kind of econometric techniques, and then read how they have interpreted their results, right? So therefore, this literature review helps us to interpret the results, because if you're not familiar, you can get some idea from others' research papers, and accordingly, you can interpret your results based on the literature review, right? So therefore, the bottom line here is the literature review is very beneficial for the researchers in numerous ways. So therefore, we have to be very vigilant on this literature review. Then I'm going to highlight the key features of the successful literature review. As I mentioned previously, this literature review is not a summary. That should be a synthesis. I explained this point very clearly. And then at the same time, the good literature review should be a critical evaluation of existing body of knowledge. We are not going to just, right? We are not going to elaborate what they have done, right? So while we are going to explain what they have done, we have to critically evaluate their results, their findings, their methodological aspect. We have to critically evaluate. At the same time, state what is your plan to expand existing knowledge. When you are writing your literature review, right? When you are writing your literature review, you can explain critically what the others have conducted. You can critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge. At the same time, at the end of the literature review, you can highlight the research gap, and then finally you can highlight, okay, so this is how we are going to, right? So this is how we are going to expand the existing body of knowledge. Right? The next point is highlighting the similarities and the differences between your work and the other works. This is also very important, because you're not going to do a research what others has conducted. So therefore, in your research, you have to highlight what is the originality of your research. So what is the novelty of your research? Then when you're conducting your literature review, you should be able to highlight, okay, so these are the contribution of my research. So these are the originality of my research. So therefore, my study is different from what they have conducted previously, right? At the end of the literature review, you have to highlight this point as well. And then they locate the research problem within the theoretical framework and review the underlying theory. This literature review can be in two ways mainly, maybe empirical review and the theoretical review. The theoretical review in the sense, you are going to review all the related theories related to your research. Then once you're going to review the existing theoretical knowledge, then easily you can locate your research into this theoretical frame. That's very important for researchers. At the same time, a successful literature review should cite all the references that we have cited in the literature review. That's mandatory. So therefore, so these are the key features of a good literature review. So therefore, when you're going to write a literature review, maybe for your research papers, maybe your academic pieces, right? Try to maintain these key features, and accordingly, you can create a very comprehensive and standard level literature review. Then the searching process in literature review. You know that to conduct a literature review, we have to collect number of research papers in relation to your research area. So without having sufficient level, number of research papers, difficult for you to conduct a literature review. So therefore, here what I'm going to focus is, right, how to search for good research papers, the searching process in literature review. So I have recognized there are mainly three types of searching process. The first one is you can search through the electronic databases. That is the most convenient way and the common way, right? You can download the relevant research articles through the electronic databases, right? So I have highlighted some electronic databases here, maybe the Web of Science, then the Scopus, then the EBSCO, then the ProQuest, or maybe the Google Scholar, lens.org. So therefore, those are the currently available and frequently used and commonly used electronic database. For some database, you have to pay, especially maybe the Web of Science and the Scopus, you have to pay, but maybe the Google Scholar and the lens.org, so those are free of charge. So therefore, when you're going to conduct a literature review, you can collect your articles or the research papers through this electronic database. That's the first method. And the second one is known as the backward search. The backward search, what do you mean by this backward search? The backward search in the sense, for example, so assume that you are referring to one research paper, right? At the end of this research paper, they have very clearly cited all the references. Then the backward search in the sense, we are going to collect some data, we are going to collect some good research article from the reference list of the one referred papers. For example, I have indicated here, screenshot of one research, the papers, the reference list, right? Then I have cited two research articles here. Then the backward search in the sense, you are going to refer one research paper, and at the end of this research paper, they have highlighted all the references, all the articles that they have referred through their research process. Then we can use all these articles, all these references for our literature review. Then that is known as backward search. So therefore, this is very important because the most of the time it is difficult for us to think about how to find good research articles. So assume that if you are going to refer an index journal, right? Index journal, which is highly recognized index journal, then, right? So their reference list is much more important. And then you can select some research papers from the reference list, that is known as backward search. That is known as backward search. And then the forward search. So we took the electronic database, and then we took the backward search, and now so we are going to take the forward search. The forward search is something different. Once you published a research paper, right? Once you published a research paper, if it is publicly available, some other scholars will use your research paper. They can go through your research papers, and then they will cite your research paper. They will refer your research paper, right? For example, here I have indicated the picture. The article here is the impact of macroeconomic factors on income inequality, and income distribution in Asian countries, which is authored by myself. And then this is available publicly in the Google Scholar. And this article that has been cited by 100 other researchers, right? So this article, this research paper cited by 100 other researchers. Then in this forward search, what we are going to do is, right, once you click on, if you can go to the Google Scholar, then once you click on this cited by 100, then the Google Scholar will display all the articles, all the scholars that cited my article, then 100 articles. Then you can select some of their articles for your literature review, right? You can select some of their article for your literature review. That is known as forward search. That is known as forward search, right? So I think this searching process is crucial, because sometimes the students, they are struggling how to collect good research papers relevant to your research area, right? Again, going back to the same thing, you can use the electronic database, right? Especially freely available, maybe the Google Scholar and the lens.org, so, right? You can use those freely available database, or otherwise, if you have the subscription, you can go for the Web of Science or the Scoopers, right? Or otherwise, the second method is the backward search. The backward search, in the sense, you can refer to the reference list of the articles, and then from that reference list, you can select some of the good articles which you can incorporate into your literature review. And this is what I have now explained the forward search. The forward search, in the sense, once you publish a research, some other scholars will cite those research, and you can use those papers. For example, here, this paper that has been cited by 100 other scholars, once you click on this one, you can see all the 100 articles with the authors, and then from that 100 list, you can select what you prefer, right? So this is the searching process in literature review. Then the forms of literature review. The forms of literature review, in the sense, so I have recognized two forms. The first one is a background review of an empirical study, and the second one is standalone piece or a review paper, right? But more commonly, right, we can see the first, right? The common form of literature review is aligned with the first, the background review of an empirical study, right? For example, I know that you have studied, you have gone through a number of research papers. When you're going through research papers, mainly and commonly, maybe in the second section, that has been allocated for the literature review. That has been allocated for the literature review. So therefore, in that paper, the literature review is just one component of the entire research paper. At the same time, when you are writing your undergraduate thesis, or maybe the master thesis or the PhD thesis, right, you have to include a separate chapter for the literature review. Then this literature review is the one component of this academic thesis, right? That is known as the background review of an empirical study, right? If the literature review is just a one component of a research paper or maybe academic thesis, that is known as background review of an empirical study, right? Then that background of that background study, or maybe the empirical study or the literature review, will elaborate and will critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge. Right? Then the purpose of this empirical study, the background review, is to critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge and then highlight the research gap, because we need to justify the research problem. Right? So therefore, in the second chapter of the your academic thesis, or the second section of the research paper, you are going to include the literature review. At the end of the literature review, you are going to highlight the research gap. Right? How we are going to highlight the research gap? You are going to critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge, and then you can highlight the research gap. So therefore, in terms of this, the first approach, the literature review is a background review, right? So in that sense, the literature review is just one component of the academic research paper or a thesis. But the second one is more comprehensive than the first. It's a standalone piece or a review paper. But here, the literature review is just one component of the research paper or thesis. But when it comes to the second approach, the literature review, it's a review paper. You can publish this literature review as a review paper, right? So therefore, this standalone piece or a review paper will elaborate all the existing body of knowledge, and then they will collect all the existing body of knowledge, and then they will critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge. At the same time, they will analyze the existing body of knowledge using some, the numeric techniques, and then they will provide some interpretation. So basically, in this kind of review paper, right? In this kind of review paper, what we are going to do is we are going to collect all possible and all available knowledge in relation to one area, right? So then I think it is clear that's what's the difference between two forms of the literature review, right? The first one, background review. The background review, in the sense that just one component of academic thesis or a research paper. But moving to the second approach, it's a standalone piece or a review paper, right? You can publish this paper as a review paper in the journal, right? So therefore, in this review paper, it's very comprehensive one, right? There should be an aggregation of the information, then interpretation and explanation. At the same time, we can integrate all the possible information to provide the very clear and the full picture of the phenomenon that we are going to study, right? Then basically, again, in terms of the second approach, the review paper, right? In terms of the review paper, so nowadays the systematic literature reviews are much more focused on these review papers, right? Right. With that comment, let's move to the systematic literature review. So until then, right? So until this point, so we have discussed the literature review in general. What is a literature review? What's the importance? What is the procedure of conducting literature review? But now onwards, we are going to specifically focus on systematic literature review, right? So what do you mean by this systematic literature review? As the title says, systematic literature review, right? Then we are going to take some systematic nature into the literature review. The literature review is a evaluation of, the critical evaluation of existing body of knowledge. And then the literature review is not a summary, it's a synthesis. Then when you are going to critically evaluate the existing body of knowledge, when you are going to synthesize the existing body of knowledge, we are going to do this in a systematic way, in a scientific way. That is known as systematic literature review. So moving along the first statement here, a process of identifying, analyzing, and interpreting all available research evidences to provide answer for a particular research question, right? Then in a systematic literature, what we are going to do is we are going to analyze. Initially, we are going to identify all possible knowledge, and then we are going to analyze this knowledge. And based on this analysis, we can provide some interpretation. right, in relation to the research area that you have recognized, right? So therefore, as I mentioned previously, so this is, in fact, this is the literature review, but only difference here is we are going to take some systematic and scientific nature to the literature review, right? Yes, the last line here is the while traditional review attempts to summarize results of a number of studies, systematic literature review uses explicit and rigorous criteria to identify, critically evaluate, and synthesize all literature on particular subject area. See the difference, right? So this statement clearly distinguishes the traditional literature review and the systematic literature review. Systematic literature review use explicit and rigorous criteria, explicit and rigorous methodology to identify all the knowledge available, and to critically evaluate this knowledge, they will be applying some rigorous techniques at the same time to synthesize. To synthesize, yes, we can apply some statistical way of doing this synthesis to conduct this systematic literature review, right? When I'm going to take that the published research paper, then I will be highlighting all these facts, and then you will realize how these systematic literature reviews are comprehensive and easy for us to conduct the literature review. And then I'm going to explain the difference between the systematic literature review and the traditional review. You can have a look on this illustration. Right? So if you go to this end, so this is a traditional review, and here we have focused this systematic review, right? The traditional review are more towards narrative reviews. We are going to just explain, we are going to describe it, right? In the traditional, we are going to describe using the words, right? But when it's come to the systematic review, we are going to use some rigorous methodologies like the bibliometric analysis or the meta-analysis, right? Bibliometric analysis and the meta-analysis. Those two use both the bibliometric analysis and the the meta-analysis, right? This technique uses some kind of statistical techniques to analyze and synthesize the existing body of knowledge, right? So therefore, since this traditional review is more towards narrative review, it is highly qualitative. It is highly qualitative, right? When you're going through the research paper and when you're going through the literature review of the research paper, then you will realize that, right? So those are highly descriptive, right? They have used different paragraphs for different sections, and they have written the literature review. So therefore, it is highly qualitative because the traditional reviews are more towards narrative reviews. But in converse to this, right? In contrast, the systematic reviews are quantitative. Why these systematic reviews are quantitative? Because they are going to apply some rigorous and comprehensive statistical method to synthesize the existing body of knowledge. Both bibliometric analysis and the meta-analysis, right? So those are based on the mathematical calculation and the statistical procedures. So therefore, these systematic reviews are quantitative, while these traditional reviews are qualitative, right? So at the same time, I have highlighted some key points here. The traditional reviews are narrative reviews, but the systematic reviews are systematic and scientific reviews, right? In this traditional review, right, there's no specific method. There's no specific analytical tools that we can adopt, right? The researcher can do the literature review as they wish because it is qualitative and it's towards narrative review. But when it's come to the systematic literature review, right, unlike this traditional review, these systematic reviews are scientific, right? It is well structured. We have well structured approach. So basically in systematic literature review, we are going to follow the PRISMA framework. So I'll get back to that the term later, right? We are going to use the PRISMA framework. This PRISMA framework is highly structured and well defined, At the same time, this systematic literature review used rigorous methodologies like the bibliometric analysis and the meta-analysis, right? So therefore, by looking at this, the illustration or the figure, you can clearly distinguish the difference between the traditional review and the systematic review. So I have quoted this the figure from the Dr. Prishanta's article. Dr. Prishant is one of the leading scholar in terms of this systematic literature review. So he has published extensively in this systematic literature review. So therefore, we should provide due credits to the Dr. Prishanta. So I have referred some articles as well. Okay, I think now it is clear the difference between the traditional review and the systematic review from this illustration, at the same time from this description which I have highlighted previously. Right. So now, we have come to the most important section, the process of conducting systematic literature review. The process of conducting systematic literature review. So you can see there are mainly 3 stages when you are going to conduct a systematic literature review. The first stage is the planning stage. The second stage is conducting, right? We are going to conduct the systematic literature review. And the third stage is the reporting stage, right? And then I have highlighted the subsections coming under each sectors, right? So basically, systematic literature review can be conducted in 3 stages. The first stage is we have to plan the review. In the second stage, we are going to conduct the review. In the last stage, we are going to report the review. Report the review in the sense we are going to prepare the review paper for a journal. That's the ultimate output of the systematic literature review, right? So we'll take one by one initially. So this is how I'm going to explain this one. So I'll explain this. I think there are 5 and 8 steps here, right? There are main 3 stages, and the main 3 stages, there are 8 sub stages are there. Then I'll be taking all these sub stages in detail separately, and then at the end of this session, I'll be taking one published systematic literature review, and then again I'll be explaining how we can link those analysis with this systematic literature review stages. Right. So we'll take the first one, the planning review. The planning the review. The first one is, yes, we have to formulate the step 1, the formulate problem. Right. As usually, as you are going to conduct an empirical research, we have to start the research with a research problem. Similarly, in this kind of literature review, systematic literature review should be started with a good research question. Right? Good research question. So then when you are going to conduct the systematic literature review, right, your objective is to answer the recognized research problem through this systematic literature review. Right? For example, maybe your problem is to so what are the current knowledge on? So what is the current knowledge on education and poverty? So what is the current knowledge on education and poverty? Then you are going to conduct a systematic review, right, to answer this research question. Right? Or otherwise, so what's the current knowledge on maybe stock market development? Right? So what is the current knowledge on stock market development? Right? Or otherwise, so what are the factors? So those are highly correlated with stock market development. Right? So that might be the research question. And then you are going to conduct a systematic literature review. Then the objective is to provide answer for this recognized research question. Right? When you're going to answer this research question through the systematic literature review, then you have to apply systematic methodologies and the comprehensive analysis, and then you can identify the sources, and then you can analyze the identified sources, and then you can interpret, right? So therefore, the formulation of this research problem is the first stage of the systematic literature review, and this is very much important as empirical research. Okay, then once you formulate the research problem, then the next step is develop and validate the review protocol. What do you mean by this review protocol? This review protocol is exactly same as the research design. This review protocol will provide the details related to how we are going to conduct this systematic literature review, right? You can see the review protocol is similar to the research design in empirical research, and it mainly includes search strings, right? Here I have clearly include what we can include in this review protocol. Search strings. Search strings in the sense, maybe the keywords. The search strings in the sense, keywords. And then inclusion criteria. The inclusion criteria in the sense, how we are going to, what kind of papers that you are going to include for this analysis, right? So I'll be explaining these things when it's come to the example, right, in more detail. Then when you're going to prepare this review protocol, right, you have to include these things: search strings, that those are the keywords, and then the inclusion criteria, and then the database used. Database used in the sense, right? So what kind of database that you have used to collect the data? Maybe Google Scholar, maybe Web of Science, maybe Scopus. You have to highlight those things. And then analytical method. What kind of analytical method, right? What kind of analytical method that you have applied to analyze the data, right? Maybe in empirical research, we can apply correlation and regression, or maybe structural equation modeling, or any kind of analysis. But here, we have different analytical techniques that will be explained a bit later, right? And then we have to highlight the report structure as well. How we are going to report the finding. We are going to report the finding based on the Prisma framework that will be discussed a bit later. And then, so we are now focusing on the second stage, right? The second stage of conducting systematic literature review. That's basically focused on how to develop this review protocol. This review protocol is same as the research design. So therefore, this review protocol elaborate how we are going to conduct the systematic literature review. And then therefore, we have to include the keywords, the inclusion criteria, then the database that we have used, and the analytical method, and the report structure should be highlighted in this review protocol, right? At the same time, so why we need this review protocol? Why we need this review protocol? Because this is a systematic literature review, so therefore, we need to ensure the systematic and the rigorous nature of this. So therefore, we are going to conduct this systematic literature review based on the criteria that we have highlighted, right? In that sense, we need this review protocol. At the same time, when you are going to conduct this kind of systematic literature review, it is easy for us to do some mistakes, right? Maybe we are going to do some bias, right? But when you're going to do the systematic literature review based on align with this review protocol, we can minimize the bias that we can occur through the literature review. At the same time, this review protocol improve and enhance the reliability of this study. Why? The point here is when you produce the review protocol, when it is indicated in the research paper, you have to indicate this review protocol into the research paper, and then someone else can do the same protocol and can be ended up with the same results. That's increase the reliability of the study, right? So therefore, this review protocol is important. Let's move to the third step. Search the literature. I think so. We have discussed this one, so I'm not going to explain this one. But just to be aligned with the order, the first one is we have to prepare the research question. The second one is we have to prepare the review protocol, right? In third one is we have to search the literature. We have to search for the research article based on the review protocol, right? Because this review protocol clearly elaborate what are the keywords that we are going to use. What are the keywords, the search strings that we are going to use to collect data, to collect articles. And what is the inclusion criteria? What kind of article, whether we are going to use only the journal papers or maybe the book or the book chapters, right? And then what kind of database that we can use, right? So therefore, based on this review protocol, because we are going to do everything aligned with the review protocol. So therefore, the third stage is the search in the literature. Then the search in the literature should also be aligned with the review protocol, right? But aligned with the review protocol, you can use these three approaches. You can use the electronic database, you can use the backward searching or the forward searching, which we have explained in detail previously, right? So then this is the third stage. Then the fourth step is screen for inclusion, right? Screen for inclusion, right? You recognize the problem, you develop the protocol, and then you collected some research papers. Then, even though you have collected, for example, assume that you have collected 250 research papers, it is not necessary to include all these 250 research papers for the analysis. Then as a researcher, as one of the experts in your field, right, you can decide what kind of papers that we are going to include for the analysis, right? Under this fourth step, screening for inclusion, which implies that it is required to decide what type of article should be included into the research systematic literature review, right? So in this inclusion criteria, this is known as inclusion criteria. This inclusion criteria should also be included into the review paper, right? So this inclusion criteria should include year range. For example, you are going to include the article from 2000 to 2020. Then the subject area, right? Then the subject, if it is stock market and stock market development, you have to highlight the, yes, subject area. Then the language of the article, right? Commonly, we are going to use only the English article, right? English article. And then the keywords, right? You can include, okay, so these are the keywords that should be included, right? Then the source type in the sense, what kind of articles, journal articles or the book chapters, right? You can include those things. Then type of study, what kind of study that you are going to do, maybe the empirical studies or the reviews. And then the methodological quality, right? You can even assess the methodological quality, right? So therefore, this inclusion criteria is very much important, because when you are going to collect the relevant research papers using the electronic databases or the forward or the backward searching, right? You may find number of research papers related to your research area. But then we should have experience and expertise enough to include the most relevant paper for the systematic literature review, right? Then under this, the step 4 mainly focus on how to select good research articles for the systematic literature review. And then we have to consider these criteria, right? Year range, the subject area, then the language of article, the keywords, the source type, the type of study, and the methodological quality to determine what kind of article to be included into this systematic literature review. So this is the fourth stage. Then moving to the fifth, step 5, assess the quality. This is also important. We have, again, going back to the previous, we have formulated the research problem, protocol prepared, and then the protocol prepared, and then we include the, what's the third one? We collect the research articles, and the fourth one is we highlight the inclusion criteria, and the fifth one is assess quality. They assess the quality. We need to assess the quality. So what do you mean by assess the quality? Once you downloaded the research papers, right? Once you download the research papers, then we have to ensure that these research papers are up to the standard level in terms of quality, right? So after screening for inclusion, researchers should obtain full studies, right? Because so without having the full text, so we can't determine whether it's a good article or not, right? Maybe you can go through the abstract and then the methodology and the conclusion and have a kind of rough idea, but to determine the quality of the article, you have to read the entire text, right? So therefore, this under this step 5, what you're going to do is, now we have collected all the research papers based on the inclusion criteria highlighted in the step 4, and then we have all the set of articles, and then we should check the quality of these downloaded articles, right? But there's no kind of very uniform method of assessing the quality, right? As you can see, there's no consensus on how reviewers should deal with the quality assurance in their reviews, right? It depends on your experience. It depends on your expertise in the field. For example, if you take the power related article, since it's one of my expertise area, then I can check whether this the methodology adapted is okay, or whether the data collection process is up to the standard level. So this is how we can assess the quality, right? To assess the quality of the downloaded papers, there's no specific mechanism, but you can assess the quality through your own experience and expertise in the field, right? You can assess. Right, let's move to the step 6, extracting data. Extracting data in the sense, right? You have the papers, but for the bibliometric analysis, for the systematic literature review, right? But for the systematic literature review, what you should need is you have to collect all the bibliometric information, right? This bibliometric information can be generated from the electronic databases, maybe from the Web of Science, maybe from the Scopus, Google's Scholar, or the lens.org. You can collect the bibliometric information, right? All this bibliometric information can be downloaded as an Excel file, right? This is known as extracting data, right? This is known as extracting data. Maybe one day when you're going to use this kind of analysis, to conduct this kind of analysis, you have to use some kind of software, and then you may be studying how to extract this data from using the search engines, right? So therefore, the step 6 highlighted extracting data. Extracting data in the sense, we need to download all the bibliometric details related to the research papers that we are going to base on our, right, systematic literature review, right? For example, searching literature through the electronic database, then you can collect the bibliometric data, right? Let's move to step 7, then analysis, right? So now you have formulated the research problem, then you have create the review protocol, and then you search for the literature, and then you include the inclusion criteria, and then you assess the quality, right? And you assess the quality, and then you extract the data. And after extracting data, what you're going to do is you can analyze, you can conduct the analysis of the systematic literature review, right? This analysis can be conducted aligned with the review protocol, right? Refer to the review protocol and conduct the analysis, right? This analysis should be aligned with the review protocol. We are not going to deviate, right? We are not going to deviate from the review protocol. We have to be aligned with the review protocol, right? Then the analysis method, right? In most of the systematic literature review, the analysis method is keyword co-occurrence analysis, right? I know that this might be new thing for the most of you, but there may be some other the participants who have attended this kind of workshops and much more familiar with this systematic literature review, right? But anyhow, In systematic literature review, the analytical method is keyword co-occurrence analysis. This is the main analytical techniques, but there may be some other analytical techniques as well. But basically, we are going to focus on the keyword co-occurrence analysis. What do you mean by this keyword co-occurrence analysis? This keyword co-occurrence analysis helps us to identify and measure the relationship between keywords. You know, in a research paper, you are going to highlight the keywords, right? You can search the literature through these keywords, right? The keywords are included in the research paper number of times. So then under this keyword co-occurrence analysis, what we are going to do is we are going to identify and measure the relationship between the keywords in an article. At the same time, this keyword co-occurrence analysis highlight the frequency that the keywords that has been occurred in an article. How many times that we can see the keywords in an article, occurrence of the keywords. So therefore, when you're going to conduct the systematic literature review, the analytical techniques is the keyword co-occurrence analysis. This keyword co-occurrence analysis can be done through the VOSWeaver software and the BiblioShiny, right? So mainly VOSWeaver software and the BiblioShiny software, right? So these are the two tools that we can use to conduct a systematic literature review, right? But this session will not cover how to use the VOSWeaver and the BiblioShiny, but instead I will provide in the way, I will highlight the key steps of conducting this analysis, and then later on I will be bringing the examples to provide a solid understanding, right? And then we can do two types of analysis. In systematic literature, we can do two types of analysis. The first one is descriptive analysis. The first one is descriptive analysis, and the second one is the main analysis based on the keyword co-occurrence analysis, right? Think about an empirical research. You have the descriptive analysis and then the statistical or the econometric analysis, right? Similar to that, in the systematic literature review also, we have descriptive analysis and, right, then the main analysis that based on the keyword co-occurrence analysis. Then the last step, the reporting. The reporting. Once you conduct the analysis, once you complete the systematic literature review, you can write a standalone piece. You can write a, right? So you can write a review article. This review article and the reporting structure should be aligned with the PRISMA guideline, right? Should be aligned with the PRISMA guideline, right? The PRISMA stands for Preferred Reporting Item for Systematic Reviews and Meta-analysis, right? This PRISMA stands for Preferred Reporting Items for Systematic Reviews and Meta-analysis, right? You can just Google this PRISMA, and then there's the website, right? So it has number of guidelines that you can follow, right? Anyhow, when you're going to report the outcome of the systematic literature review, that should be aligned with the PRISMA guideline, right? So now, we have explained all the 8 stages of conducting a systematic literature review, right? For the newcomers, I know that this is not that easy to understand, because if you're going to the studies, if you're going to learn the systematic literature review for the first time, right, you have to be much more vigilant on these 8 key steps, right? Then my objective is to, so I'll be taking one example, published systematic review paper, systematic literature review paper, and then I'll be explaining the things related to the descriptive analysis and the main analysis based on the keyword co-occurrence analysis, right? Then you can have some understanding about, okay, so these are the things that we are going to do through this kind of systematic literature review. And then you can think about, okay, to generate this kind of output, then we have to be familiar with the VOSViewer and the biblioshiny softwares. Then the next step of this session would be, right, you have to study how to use VOSViewer and the biblioshiny software to conduct a systematic literature review, right? Maybe at least you have to arrange another 2 or 3 sessions to complete this entire systematic literature review process, right? So therefore, now let me take some examples, and then we'll try to understand and we'll try to interpret the results of the published systematic literature review, right? Okay, so this is the paper that I have taken. The review of, right, the research paper title is Review of Work from Home Empirical Research During COVID-19, right? So this is also co-authored by Dr. Priyashant and Dogra, right? So this is a very good article they have recently published, right? Then the analysis here is pretty much straightforward and clear. So therefore, I have used this article to make you understand about how to analyze, how to interpret the results related to the systematic literature review, right? Again, the title is The Review of Work from Home, Empirical Research During COVID-19, right? Just to recap again, so these are the stages. We have the planning stage, we have conducting stage, we have the reporting stage, and then so these are the 8 steps that we have highlighted, right? So then, so before that, before we are going to highlight the results of the research paper, let me highlight what are the objectives. The step 1 is the research problem, right? Formulate the research problem or the objectives. The objective of this research paper, there are 3 objectives, right? The first one is to find the common work from home practices, right? Work from home practices during COVID-19, right? During the period of 2020 to 2022. This is the first objective, to find out the common practices in work from home. And then the second one is to find the areas that are not common, find the areas that are not common in work from home practices in the research landscape during COVID-19. And the third objective is to recognize the areas that need attention in future research on work from home practices, right? So in simple terms, right, if you are going to take all these objectives, right, the simple meaning of this objective is they are going to highlight what is the current knowledge on work from home. What's the current knowledge? And what is the current gap in the literature? What is the current knowledge related to the work from home in the existing body of knowledge? And then so what are the highlighted gaps in the literature? So those are the main objectives of this study, right? Then as I previously mentioned, the analysis of this research, there are 2 components, descriptive analysis and the main analysis based on the keyword co-occurrence analysis. So let me now take the descriptive analysis first. So before that, okay, let me highlight the review protocol. Again, going back to here, we formulate the research objectives and problems. Then the next one is develop and validate the review protocol, right? Then this is very much important because this review protocol is the research design. This review protocol highlight how we are going to conduct the research, how we are going to conduct the systematic literature review, right? Then this review protocol has prepared based on the PRISMA guidelines, right? So therefore, so we'll take the article selection method, align with the review, align with the PRISMA guideline. Then search terms, right? Search terms in the sense search strings, right? Then they have taken 19 NCOV, right? Because the COVID-19 may be included in different articles in different ways. COVID-19, then corona disease 2019, novel coronavirus, right? and then the NCP 2019, right? So there are a number of ways, because we are going to focus on this corona and the COVID-19 and the work from home and the remote work, right? So therefore, so these are the search terms, right? You can see the work from home and then WFH, again the work from home. Because that's why I mentioned that, because these search terms may be appeared in different article in different ways. So therefore, we have to capture all possible things. So therefore, we have to highlight the possible search strings or search terms that we are going to focus on. Then article inclusion, year range, right? You can see the article inclusion. The first one is year range, right? They have taken articles only from 20 to 22. Why? Because the coronavirus started 2019, right? 2019. Then scholars started publishing 2020. So therefore, this phenomenon started in 2019, and then the researchers started doing some research on this starting from 20. So therefore, so they have included from 20 to 22. Then the subject area. Then the subject area. All, right, all subjects categorized in the Scopus database. Right? All subject categorized in the Scopus database, because they have used the Scopus database. Right? And then the language of the article. Right? If you can remember, when I was explaining the review protocol, I have highlighted. So those are the things that we should include in the review protocol. Year range, the subject area, then the language of article. Then the language of article should be English. Then the keywords. The keywords are much more important, because we are going to do the systematic literature review based on the keywords. Then these are the keywords that they have incorporated, right? Pandemic, work from home, epidemic, right? The coronavirus diseases 2019, teleworking, the remote work, right? Telecommunicating, the COVID-19 pandemic, the pandemics, the telework again, right? Teleworking, telework, then the work from home, right? So these are the keywords that they have included into their articles. Then the publication source type, right? The publication source type. They have focused only on the journal papers. They have not focused on the book or the book chapters or the magazines, right? So they are going to base their analysis only on the journal papers, right? And the next one is the type of study, right? They have selected empirical articles, not the reviews, because the type of studies may be the empirical studies and the reviews, right? But they have selected only the empirical articles and the quantitative studies which were peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed quantitative studies, those should be empirical articles, right? And then the methodological quality, articles that followed quantitative methodology. They have not captured the qualitative article. So they have ignored the qualitative article or the mixed approach. So they have considered only the quantitative approach, right? And then the analysis method, PRISMA guideline. Analysis method, the PRISMA guideline, in the sense the analysis technique, mainly the keyword co-occurrence analysis. Then the reporting structure, again, the PRISMA guidelines, right? This is the review protocol. This should be, because I have taken this review protocol from that article directly. So therefore, when you are going to do a systematic literature review, you have to incorporate this review protocol into the research paper. Then the next one is the inclusion criteria. This is much more complex, right? Inclusion criteria, right? Inclusion criteria, which has 3 stages, right? Inclusion criteria that I have taken from the same research paper, which has, in generally, inclusion criteria should have 3 stages: identification, screening, and included. Identification, in the sense we are going to identify the research papers. Screening, in the sense we are going to filter the identified research papers based on different criteria, right? And then finally include. after screening, we can include the filtered or screened articles to the analysis. Right. We'll take the identification, right? This research, they have article identified from Scoopus database. They have used only the Scoopus. But there are some other research articles. And also you also can do, you can collect data, research article from the Scoopus, Web of Science, and the Google School. And also from the lens.org. That can be done. But this article, these researchers, so they have identified articles only from the Scoopus database. And see, initially they have identified how much? 1,385 articles, right? In the identification process, they have identified 1,385 articles. But let me explain the included. Even though they have initially identified 1,385 articles, they have included only 108 articles for the systematic literature review. Simply speaking, even though they have collected 1,385 research articles initially, this analysis they have conducted only by using 108 articles. Why? Because from this screening process, right, through this filtering process, they have, right, ignored all other articles. Then see, screening. Let me explain now the screening process. Right. Screening has article screen. Yes, they have screened all the articles that they have collected, 1,385. Then go here. Non-relevant articles were excluded through default limiting option of the database. Because this, when you're going to collect data from database, for example, Google Scholar, Scopus, or Web of Science, automatically you can limit the number of articles, right? Then they have, this is how this researcher has excluded some irrelevant article, non-relevant, or the irrelevant article were excluded. For example, limiting by year, they have excluded 2 articles. Limiting by subject area, they have included 372 articles, right? Then the language, non-English, there are 9 non-English articles excluded. And then the limiting by keywords, so they have included 198 articles, right? Then the source type, they have excluded, right? They have excluded 5 conference papers because they are going to focus only the journal papers, not the conference proceedings. So therefore, they have excluded 5 conference proceedings, right? So this is how they have screened for the non-relevant of the articles, right? Then here, non-relevant articles excluded by reviewers manually, right? So these things automatically reviewed and filtered by the Scoopus database. And then the researchers, they have manually excluded how many articles? 85 articles, right? 85 articles, right? And then after screening, right? So after screening, article assessed for the eligibility. So they have taken 110 articles. They have taken 110 articles as required, as eligibility, right? But out of these 110 articles, see, report exclude due to non-relevance, right? Another 2 articles, ignored due to non-relevance, and ultimately they have used only 108 research papers for the analysis. This is the inclusion criteria. This is very much important. At the same time, you have to include this inclusion criteria into the literature review paper, right? So we have 3 stages: identification, screening, and included, right? So therefore, it is very clear that no need to include all the articles that you have collected initially for the analysis. That should be filtered and screened very clearly, and then all the relevant articles only to be included into the analysis, right? So I know that this is maybe not that familiar, but when you're going to it's better to have this understanding, because then you have the curiosity, right? Then you have some kind of motivation. Okay, we should learn this one using some, more comprehensive analysis, right? Keep that curiosity with you, then that will direct you to the some other sessions, and then you can have, then you can use those softwares to conduct a systematic literature review in an efficient way, right? Let's go to the next step, then the analysis. We explain the review protocol, right? So we explain the review protocol, and then we highlight the inclusion criteria, right? And now, so we are going to explain the analysis, right? Analysis initially, so I'm going to explain the descriptive analysis, right? This table provides the information of article set, right? Description and the results. The time duration that they have taken is 2020 to 2022. Then the journal, so they have taken 95 journals, and the countries 18, and the journal articles, yes, as mentioned here, they have included 108 journal papers. So these are the descriptive results, right? Average citation per year. So if you take these journals, their average citations per year is 11. Right, then the references, if you take all these articles, which has 6,985 references. The keywords, 370. Authors, 398. See, so this is the basic information on the article set. Right, so those tables and everything can be generated through the software VOSWeaver, because we are going to do the analysis based on the VOSWeaver software, right? So those the tables, right? We don't need to calculate those things manually. We don't need to get all the the research papers and count the authors. No, nothing, right? The software automatically generate all this information very easily, right? But this session will not provide that coverage. So therefore, I will be giving this analysis, and then later on you can be familiar with the software. Then the annual article production, right? So this chart can also be generated through the software, right? This graph illustrates clearly the annual article production. You can see the annual article production has started from 2020. Why? The coronavirus started in 2019. Prior to that, so we don't have that experience. So therefore, annual article production started from 2020 and gradually increasing, but now it's gradually declining, since now the concept is outdated, right? And then average citation again started from the 2020. Why? Someone can cite the article when the article is available publicly, right? As you can see, the article production started from 2020, so thereby the citations that has also started from 2020, right? See, now it is very detailed, right? Unlike traditional literature review, right? So this is the literature review, this is systematic literature review, and then this is a descriptive analysis, right? You can have very systematic results through this systematic literature review. You can compare this systematic literature review, the results, with the traditional literature review, and then you may feel that this is much more comprehensive and detailed. And then source journal of articles, right? This also will generate through the software. You can see the majority of the articles published by the sustainability journal. This journal title, sustainability, followed by the transport research, right? So this elaborate, right? Because we have considered 108 articles, right? So this some of the journal, right? So these are some of the journals that they have published these 108 articles, right? Okay. So now, still the descriptive analysis, the country-wise article production, right? Because we have taken how many articles. So we have taken 108 articles, right? And 18 countries, right? So this visualization, right? This visualization clearly depicts the country-wise article production, right? So these notes, this is the United States, then Australia, the India, Pakistan, and so on, right? Right? The size of these notes indicates the, right? Again, the size of these notes indicates the number of article published. When the note is larger, it implies that the published articles is also higher. If the note is smaller, here China, if the note is smaller, then the published article is also small, right? So therefore, this is very important, right? This figure is very important because this provides the country-wise analysis on the article production. At the same time, you can see, right, this United States, they have published extensively on this work from home in relation to other countries. At the same time, India also published extensively, and Australia, so they have published, and the United Kingdom. But in terms of China, they haven't published because the China is the country highly suffered from the COVID-19. So then they didn't have that kind of freedom to publish. So therefore they have, lag behind. At the same time, you can see, especially this the United States and Australia, they are linked by this line. Linked by this line in the sense, maybe there are some research collaboration, right? Maybe some research collaboration in between United States and Australia, United States and Canada, right? Then the United States and some other countries here, French Republic, right? So that's why they have interrelated, right? At the same time, you can see the Canada and United Kingdom. So they have some research collaboration, right? And then the Pakistan and India, so they have some research collaboration, right? And here the Bulgaria and the Netherlands, so they have some research collaboration, right? So therefore, this country-wise article production visualization, right, it's very detailed and comprehensive one. Of course, we can recognize the based on the size of the notes, the number of articles produced by each country. At the same time, right, the based on this line, the link those countries, then we can think about, right, so what kind of research collaboration is there in between these countries, right? United States and Australia and Canada and so, right? So we can do this kind of mapping, right? So we can do this kind of visualization in the traditional literature review. So therefore, so that's why I mentioned that because my expectation is to motivate you to learn about this systematic literature review in future, right? So let's move to the main analysis, right? The keyword occurrence, right? This table indicates, right, the number of times that we can see the keywords in an article, right? For example, the COVID-19 keyword that has occurred 84 times, right? And then the work from home, 27, right? 27, right? So then the COVID-19 and the work from home. So these two keywords are, right, are the highest occurrence keywords. The COVID-19, which has occurrence 84 times, at least minimum 4 occurrence, right? If we take article, right, the COVID-19, right? So we have considered at least 4 occurrence, which reports 84 occurrences. Similarly, the work from home, 27 occurrences. So therefore, majority of the researchers, so they have examined on the COVID-19 and the work from home, right? Okay, then the results of the keyword co-occurrence network visualization, right? So now we have come to the main analysis of the systematic literature review, right? The main analysis of the systematic literature review can be done through keyword co-occurrence analysis, right? Keyword co-occurrence analysis, right? The results of the keyword co-occurrence analysis can be illustrated in different ways. This is the one way, the keyword co-occurrence network visualization. Right? Here you can see there are some nodes, right? The COVID-19 and work from home, right? You can see different sizes of nodes are available in different colors. What are the colors? Here we have yellow, and here we have blue, and here we have green, and here we have red, and we have the purple as well. Here we have the purple color, right? Then this keyword co-occurrence, right? The keyword co-occurrence network visualization highlighted, right? For example, as I mentioned previously, the size of the nodes indicates the occurrence of the keywords. Larger nodes, larger occurrence. The larger nodes, higher occurrence of the keywords. So therefore, the largest node here is the COVID-19. COVID-19. It implies that COVID-19, the keyword called COVID-19 has occurred number of times. Then the second large is the work from home. The second one is the largest one is the work from home. Right? You can compare this with this table. You can see the COVID-19 has occurred 84 times, and then the work from home occurred 27 times, which is reflected from this network visualization as well, right? Which is reflected from this network visualization as well, right? The COVID-19 which is higher, right? If you take this node, which is the largest, so therefore it reflects the COVID-19 has occurred number of times. The second largest is the work from home, right? So therefore, the meaning here is that the bottom line is that, right, the researchers, they have extensively researched on COVID-19 and work from home compared to others, right? Researchers they have extensively researched on the COVID-19 and the work from home, right? At the same time, if you can see here, right, this line is much thicker than other lines, right? You can compare this line, which connects work from home and the COVID-19, which is much more thicker than other lines. Then the thickness of this line, right? The thickness of this line indicates the strength of the relationship between work from home and COVID-19. Strength of the relationship between work from home and COVID-19, right? So therefore, the COVID-19 and the work from home, so these two keywords and these two phenomenons have been extensively addressed by the researchers. At the same time, there's a higher relationship between work from home and the COVID-19, right? But you can see the COVID-19 and productivity. The line is not that thicker, right? But this line is much thicker, right? So therefore, the thickness of the line indicates the relation, the strength of the relationship between the COVID-19 and work from home, right? Then, so what is the objective of this research? The objective of this research is to examine what is the current knowledge on COVID-19, what's the current knowledge on the work from home, right? Then this visualization map the current knowledge on work from home. This current the current knowledge of work from home is related with job satisfaction and the productivity, right? And the telework and the attitudes, right? And also, as I mentioned previously, right, there are different color codes: yellow, red, green, and blue, and also purple. These different color codes indicates the different themes, right? For example, this is one theme, and this is another theme. This is another theme, and this is another theme, and this is another theme, right? So therefore, in this visualization, there are a number of color codes, right? So this color codes indicates different themes, right? So then different themes in the sense, right? We are going to examine the current knowledge on the work from home, right? Then based on these colors, then we can visualize the, right? Then we can visualize the themes. Right. Right. So these are the themes or the clusters, right? For example, a red cluster. Red cluster, the theme name is work, attitudinal outcome, and means of work from home, right? Red. So these are the red cluster, right? This red cluster, the keywords are job satisfaction, right? Work from home, then the productivity, telework, and attitudes, right? So therefore, we can provide the common cluster name or the theme name for this cluster, then which is known as, right? This is the cluster, work, attitudinal outcomes, and means for work from home. Yes, there's question that who has identified these keywords by the software or the researcher. The researcher basically, right? The researcher has to identify the keywords, right? Because in the protocol, then the review protocol and the inclusion criteria, we have to highlight the keywords. And accordingly, right? Once the researcher identified the keywords, and accordingly, software will map, right? The software will map this visualization, right? And then we can recognize the clusters. So this is the first cluster. And then we have the blue color, right? This, it's a separate cluster. And the yellow, this is a separate cluster. And accordingly, based on this keyword co-occurrence network visualization, we can create these themes. The themes in the sense we are generating, we are examining, so what is the available knowledge on work from home, right? Which is the available knowledge on work from home. I'm not going to explain all the cluster colors and the themes and the keywords, right? It's there. You can have a look on that. But the importance of this network visualization map is, again, right? Based on the size of the node, you can determine, right, the number of occurrence of the keywords. The number of if the number of occurrence of the keyword is higher, which implies that the researchers, they have extensive research on those things. Specifically, COVID-19 and the work from home are highly addressed, right? Right. Then move to the next visualization, right? Density visualization map of keywords. This density visualization map is pretty much important. I think this is the last visualization, right? This density visualization map of keyword is pretty much important to recognize the research gap, right? Because one of the main reason of conducting this kind of systematic literature review is to recognize the research gap. From this research gap, we can recognize the future research areas. Then this map, this visualization map clearly elaborate, right? What are the areas the researchers have extensive research, and what are the areas, right? Still there are some gray areas. For example, you can see this COVID-19, right, which is under red color. If this visualization is under red color, it implies that researchers have extensively researched on that phenomenon. Then the COVID-19, you can see it is red. At the same time, this node is much higher compared to the other nodes, right? Then the color, if the color is red, if the size is large of the node, then it implies that, right, the researchers have extensively researched on this COVID-19. And similarly, the work from home, right? It's yellow and still the node is large. The yellow and the node is still large. It implies that the concept called work from home has also been researched by the researchers, but not like this, but right? But still they have examined this concept. But think about other notes: work engagement, right? Work family conflict, then gender, then the leaderships, then the mental health, or be the attitudes. Those are not red colored. Those are in blue color, right? Those are in blue color, right? If the note is red colored, so what's the meaning? The meaning is the researchers have extensively, addressed such phenomena. So therefore, no point of addressing again the relationship between work from home and COVID-19. Why? Because this density visualization map clearly elaborate that, right? These two nodes are highlighted in red and yellow. At the same time, the size of the nodes are much higher compared to the other nodes. So therefore, it implies that, right, the previous scholars, so they have extensively addressed the relationship between the work from home and the COVID-19, or individually, right? But think about this, right? Think about this work-family conflict. Work-family conflict is much more, if you take the distance from the work from home to work-family conflict, it is the higher distance is there. At the same time, the color of this work-family conflict is blue. It's not in green, or sorry, it's not in red or yellow, right? So therefore, as I mentioned previously, we can recognize the research gaps and the future research areas from this density visualization, right? For example, we can do a research on what is the impact of work from home on work-family conflict, because this concept that has not been addressed by the previous researchers. So therefore, we can link this phenomenon with the work from home. So what is the impact of work from home on work-family conflict, right? Similarly here, you can take this work-life balance. This another phenomenon and another node which has not been addressed by some other researchers. Then we can link this one with the work from home, right? What is the impact of work from home on work-life balance, right? At the same time, take the mental health, which is far away from the work from home, at the same time, which is not addressed by the previous researchers. So therefore, you can do a study on, so what is the impact of work from home on the mental health, right? And what is the impact of work from home on the leadership, right? Similarly, I think it's clear for you all that, right, from this keyword co-occurrence network visualization, we can find out the clusters and the themes in the sense we are generating all available existing knowledge on this work from home. But using this density visualization map, right? What we are going to do is, right, we are going to recognize the research gap, untouched research areas, direct into the future research, right? So this is what we have done from the traditional literature review as well. But in traditional literature review, we didn't have this kind of comprehensive and systematic and kind of well-defined and structured way of doing this. But in the systematic literature review, now it is very clear that there's no any bias, there's no any subjectivity, right? So we can do the systematic literature review, right, to highlight the research gap, at the same time to highlight the existing body of knowledge in related to a research area, right? So I think so we are sharp 11 now. So this is so we have come to the end of the presentation, right? So we spend exactly 2 hours. Then the purpose of this session is to, right, while providing some introductory understanding on the systematic review, right, I just want you to motivate, right? I want to motivate you to learn much more about the systematic literature review, because I haven't touched the how to use the Wasviewer and the Video Shiny software to generate this kind of nice graphical illustrations to provide the very comprehensive understanding on the knowledge and also to highlight the gaps, right? So therefore, I think that at least you have taken some knowledge from the session, but this is not sufficient at all. Then the next step is you have to be familiar with the software, and then you have to do your own analysis, right? And then you can write a research paper, right? So I assume that, and I strictly believe that you will continue this session, not by just, limiting from this introductory remark. Then you can individually, you can study how to do these systematic reviews using the softwares, right? And maybe you can join some other places where they are going to conduct some sessions. But anyhow, I wish all of you to continue this session, and so ultimately, compile a good research paper, a good research review paper that can be published in a recognized journal, right? So with that comment, so let me bind up the session and hand over the sessions to the organizing committee. So thank you very much for attention and listening, right? And if you have any question, maybe so I can maybe allow maybe just 5 minutes, like if you have anything, you can raise your question. Thank you very much. Organizing committee, over to you.
Thank you so much, dear sir, for your valuable session. Actually, I'm pretty sure that all of the participants got a clear idea about systematic literature review. So before I move to the next, as our resource person mentioned, Professor Ravindra Deshapriya. So is there any questions or comments from your side? Anyone?
Yes, I am Manoj Ariratna from the Department of Languages, Sabaragam University of Sri Lanka. Dear sir, thank you very much for your very comprehensive presentation. Okay, and I have one question. Actually, we can use visualization. Do research, do a literature review, comprehensive literature review, and then of course we can use visualization. And what about the reporting, showing the empirical, theoretical, and methodological gap? How can we report, using the language? We can report, Can we use visualization plus report or visualization only or what? That's my...
Right. Thank you very much for your concern. So in fact, the visualization together with the explanation, right? Visualization itself is not sufficient because as I mentioned in analysis, so we have the descriptive analysis and the main analysis that based on the keyword co-occurrence analysis. Then, so I have taken only 2 visualizations here, right? 2 or 3 visualization. Then you have to maybe these visualizations generated by the software that can be copied and pasted into your research article. And then you have to provide a comprehensive explanation on each visualization, right? Because then only we can highlight, okay, so these are the current knowledge and these are the areas that the researchers have extensively analyzed, but still there are some gray areas based on the density map, right? So then, directly to answer your question, the visualization itself not sufficient. You have to explain those things, the visualization align with your research objectives, right? But that section I have not covered here because I have explained how to do that one. But the writing of the paper, the language that you are going to use, as you know, as academics, we know how to write papers. You can use the same language, but you need to elaborate the visualization and the tables we have highlighted.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Very, very comprehensive presentation. Why I asked this question is that because you see, I teach academic writing skills in postgraduate students and undergraduate students over here, and there we use different writing styles. For example, expository writing style, analytical writing style, and so on. As you correctly mentioned, actually in a literature review, it is not just a summary. Or if it is a summary, then of course we can use only the expository writing style. Whereas it is a, as you mentioned, critical analysis, of course. So correctly you have mentioned, and it is an analytical synthesis, not reporting. Okay. Then of course we have to use critical writing styles, and of course, the persuasive writing styles and so on. So the human language is power enough to use different kind of writing style according to necessity. Okay, so in that case, actually we have to use not the exposited writing style, but the critical and analytical writing style. That is why I asked, do we have to report showing the empirical gap, theoretical gap, and methodological gap using the language, meaning using analytical, critical writing styles, and of course, along with the, visualization and so on. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So actually, we came to the end of our first pre-conference workshop. Before wind up the session, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to everyone who made this pre-conference workshop such a successful event. First, our deepest gratitude to Professor Ravindra Deshapriya for conducting an incredibly interesting, detailed session. So let's take a moment to show our gratitude by presenting virtual token of appreciation to our esteemed resource person for his invaluable contribution.
Thank you very much. And finally, thank you very much for inviting to this session. I think we spent exactly 2 hours, and then so this why it's not the comprehensive presentation, because so I haven't covered the how to use the software to conduct the systematic literature review. But anyhow, I assume that you have some kind of introductory understanding, and then hope you will continue that up to the comprehensive level future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much again, sir. So, and again, I would like to thank Dr. Rohan Abevikrama, the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, for providing us these valuable opportunities. And also Professor Velgama, the conference chair of ICSSL, and all the organizing committees of ICSSL and pre-conference workshops, as well as all the professors, senior lecturers, and all other academics, non-academics, students, researchers who have participated today, and our technical team members. Actually, all of your support, participation, encouragement made this event truly special. So until we meet again with our second pre-conference workshop, have a nice day.